Crusader No Remorse is a game I looked at longingly from afar as a teenager. A friend owned it, and he was one of those little gits who constantly says, "Oh, you can have a go in a minute," but that minute never comes. So my only experience was to sit and watch as he had loads of fun. Well, it looked like loads of fun. I seem to remember him dying a lot, and having played through Crusader No Remorse now, I can certainly see that wasn't a false memory, but we'll come back to that. Let's start at the beginning, rewinding the clock all the way back to the mysterious futuristic year of 1995, a year when TLC were chasing waterfalls, Sly Stallone was playing Judge Dredd in an unfortunate sort of way, and Sony released their little-known PlayStation console on an unsuspecting North American populace. Crusader No Remorse, which I'm just going to call Crusader now because I'm bored of saying the full title, was developed by Origin Systems, and Origin Systems was founded by none other than Lord British himself, Richard Garriott, alongside his brother Robert, who might be a fictional lord as well, I'm not sure, I haven't checked. Origin itself was founded in 1983 and was made famous by games such as Harry Potter Online, which was cancelled, and something called the Ultima series, of which there were approximately 65 entries, although no one knows for sure. As with all game developers, the company was acquired by Electronic Arts in 1992, and as with all game developers, it was eaten alive and spat out like a wet slipper. EA brought their iron fist down on Origin's soft, squishy head in 2004 after years of dragging its corpse across the landscape where it was mostly acting as a bed of maggots for Ultima Online to feed on. As soon as that proved itself to be of no monetary gain, EA was done. Richard Garriott had already left the scene a cool 4 years earlier, and that was that. But Crusader had, thankfully, arrived long before EA started flicking matches at them, and developed by a smaller offshoot of Origin, Loose Cannon Productions. The game comes mostly as a surprise, considering this wasn't another entry into the Ultima series, or the Wing Commander series. Crusader was something to get excited about. Origin had already proven that they were more than capable of starting up successful or critically acclaimed new series, with System Shock releasing just 1 year prior. In fact, it's pretty amazing to see just how much Origin was pumping out in the years leading up to Crusader. In 1994, they released Metal Morph, Ultima Runes of Virtue 2, and Ultima the Blackgate on the SNES, Super Wing Commander on 3DO, and Pacific Strike, Pagan Ultima 8, Privateer Righteous Fire, System Shock, Ultima Runes of Virtue 2, and Wing Commander Armada for DOS. All in 1 year. That is insane. Not all of those games were great, of course, but their output was commendable, and they tended to focus on a mix of new properties alongside well-established series. They had a good formula on the go, and Crusader fell into the category of new stuff to look at. One of the first things you'll notice about Crusader, or at least one of the first things I noticed, is that it looks like it should be an RPG. The isometric angles are reminiscent of the original 2 Fallout games, and there's a definite reason behind this. The game was built using an advanced version of the Ultima 8 Pagan engine. Unlike that game, however, Crusader is not an RPG, it's an action game. It's an action game that allows you to use the mouse, but you definitely should not do that. Honestly, what I expected as soon as the game popped into view was to be controlling my little red Boba Fett with the, say, WASD keys and aiming with the mouse. But no, this was the mid-90s and controls hadn't been invented yet. The mouse, if you choose to go in that direction, which is on your head, I've warned you not to, it's basically like trying to control a forklift truck with a rollerball. Moving the mouse left and right spins your man around. One button moves him forward, other buttons do something else. To be fair to me, I can't remember much more than that, because after about 2 minutes of trying to understand why they even thought this would be an enjoyable experience, I restarted the game and decided to go fingers first into keyboard only mode. This was definitely the correct option, although there are still issues. Crusader is definitely a product of its time, but more than that, it's not even really a standard product of its time. Crusader is the strange stepchild of Ultima's sexy adventures with Robotron, and as such, you're going to be wrestling with the controls pretty much throughout the entire game. You have the arrow keys for movement, left and right to turn clockwise and anti-clockwise, up moves forward and down moves backward. These controls, like anything else from the mid-90s, can be described by a classic Simpsons quote.
But tonight I say, we must move forward, not backward, upward, not forward, and always twirling, twirling, twirling towards freedom.
With enemies appearing at all angles, this mad spinning and subsequent approximation of aiming your weapon is not ideal. It's not ideal at all. You do have a number of other controls at your disposal though, spread out like a cyst across the keyboard in places that your fingers will struggle to remember in a panic. Holding shift will make you run, which is simple enough. Holding control will put you into, I want to say, action mode? Basically it changes what the arrow keys do. Holding control and moving left or right will see your little fellow rolling around on the floor with gay abandon, while pressing up will make him jump as though he's never jumped before in his life. I mean, he really makes a big effort to do it. I guess that armor could be pretty heavy, but it is what it is. He looks knackered. Holding Alt and using left and right will put Rosie Boba Fett into strafe mode. Pressing S will select the closest item to you so you can search it or use it with a press of the return key. The I button will cycle through your inventory, the U button will use the currently selected item, W will change your weapon, and there are probably multiple other buttons that do multiple other things, but I've already run out of brain RAM. I can't possibly store more than this. Well, yes, I can. I can store two more things, two more essential buttons that need to be used more than most of the buttons in the game. F5 for quick save and F4 for quick load. Now, before you start telling me to get good noob or say I'm a scrub, it's pretty damn clear fairly early on in this game that it was designed around the necessity to quick save and quick load. There are things in this game that will kill you off with virtually no warning whatsoever, and wrestling with the controls in the middle of a firefight is, much like its RPG origins, not too different from rolling a dice and hoping for a 20. You will die in Crusader. Sometimes it's your fault, sometimes it's just because the game hates you, but regardless, if you don't quick save and you die, the game just stops. And when I say it stops, what I actually mean is that it doesn't stop at all. It doesn't do anything. You're just sat there watching the world continue as your corpse bakes in the sun. In order to continue, you have to either hit quick load, because you have been quick saving, haven't you? I warned you about that. Or you have to head back to the main menu. And you either start from your last manual save, or you start at the very beginning. There is no in-between. There are no checkpoints here. No remorse. Let me tell you, if you can get through the entirety of level 1 with no quick saves, and it's your first time playing the game, well, you're a better man than I am. There are gun turrets to contend with, traps to avoid, men with poorly scripted AI sort of shooting at you, and while medikits are in abundance, handily mapped to the M button, and god damn it, that's just overloaded my brain capacity, and now I can't remember how to walk. Thanks, Crusader. What was I saying? Yes. Medkits. While they're in abundance, it's the instant deaths that can really cheese you off. This walkway, for instance, before I'd even realised that quick save and quick load was going to be a thing I should have been doing, this thing ruined my first playthrough. How was I supposed to know this was going to happen? Well, you just sort of don't. There are things like this in Crusader, and you just have to consider each room in the game as sort of a mini challenge that your quick save ability will buffer for you. You'll get used to it. It becomes such a habit of hitting F5 and F4 that it almost becomes pure instinct. And this is all fine, of course, plenty of games did this back in the day, but it's something that you definitely need to know up front, and especially in the first level, because for reasons I simply cannot understand, the first level is the longest in the entire game by a huge margin. So let me skip back a little in this review and explain the plot as best I can, because I'm not a plot-focused person. I can't be expected to remember what's going on in a fictional world while also being asked to remember 15 keyboard inputs, but here goes. It's the future. Earth has entered late-stage capitalism. Continental organizations have merged into the World Economic Consortium, otherwise known as the WEC. Basically, imagine if, instead of countries, we had things like the United States of Amazon and the Apple Kingdom. I think that's basically what it's getting at. It's future world, where all the corporations have become so rich that they're basically the government. You were a part of this evil WEC conglomerate until you disobeyed orders to shoot a bunch of civilians, and then you defect to the rebels, and then it's basically Star Wars from that point on. But instead of lightsabers, you've got minds that look like spiders, and instead of being in space, you're almost consistently fighting people in warehouses. This game has a lot of warehouses. When the game begins, it pretty much just dumps you straight into proceedings with no real build-up. There's a small cutscene before the game starts, and then that's it. There's no tutorial or dialogue or exposition, and I actually quite like the boldness of this cold opening. You have no real idea who you are or what you're doing, and especially if you're taking the manuals of a wimp's route and jumping in blind. The manual, however, is definitely the place to go if you want to understand any of this stuff. Crusader is most definitely from an era where manuals were a must, not an optional. That being said, I read the manual after the event because I like to swim through a fog of confusion and anxiety while people are shooting at me. That cold opening leads to a mission that is, as previously mentioned, extremely long. Some might say tediously so. You'd be forgiven for thinking that this first mission is not in fact a mission, but the entirety that the game has to offer. You're running around in a warehouse, shooting at people with the spacebar, now I've forgotten my daughter's name, and rolling through traps and wondering where the hell it is you're actually going. Eventually though, you'll come across this thing. You need to blow this thing up, and on doing so, mission 1 will be complete. And you'll be taken to the hub world, where you actually get to meet some characters and get a bit of exposition under your belt. It's at this point that you'll really want to understand the basic premise of the story, because every single person in this shithole hates your guts.
I'm Colonel Ely, and this is my base. Listen, Captain, I'm gonna level with you. I don't like this arrangement any more than my troops do.
You're in the wrong place if you've come in for a friendly little drink. You won't find one here.
I don't know who you are, but I know what you are. So I'm only gonna say this once. You stay clear of me. I don't want anything to do with consortium scum like you.
So much for the loving welcome, right, Captain?
I mean, fair enough, I understand, but also, go fuck yourselves. Regardless, there is one guy here who's useful to get in contact with, and that is Weasel. So named because he has a weasel? Or did he get a weasel because he's called Weasel? I don't know, but anyway, he is Weasel.
Hey, I do it for free, but a man's got to pay his people, you know? Also, I got to take care of my little baby. Baby. This stuff isn't exactly easy to come by either, if you know what I mean. So tell me, Captain, what can I do for you today? Huh?
He's certainly a character, and he's a character that sells you stuff, so he's automatically the best person in this place. It's at this point you'll realise that Crusader, at the very least, has options. Which weapons do you want to take with you on your next adventure through another brown warehouse, and will it honestly make that much of a difference? The choice is yours.
Resistance over in Sector H37 got hit this morning by a full battalion of WEC troopers and mechs. Word has it all the survivors from this morning's raid are being held for interrogation and experimentation.
After speaking to the boss, who's about 2 degrees removed from saying, "I'm too old for this shit," you have to head to the teleporter, and you're transported back into a world of twirling and shooting and quick saving. And that's the general repetition going forward, albeit with levels that are far shorter than the very first one. But even with shorter levels, it doesn't quite alleviate a lot of the core stresses that I have with this game, and one of the perfect examples of this is the very start of level 2. Oh, right, okay, just throw me in there then. I'd like to get out of here, but there are lasers everywhere. How am I supposed to kill that guy? Is he the way I get out of here? Okay, well, he's dead. That's done nothing. Do I just shoot at random things until something happens? Oh, okay, that did something, somehow. Right, that's me out of there then. Right, how do I get out of here though? The door's shut. Right, okay, let's have a look at the computer. Right. What about this thing? No, I can't use that computer. Right, okay. No, computer's done nothing. The door's still shut. What's going on? Is there anything over here? No. Right, this computer, surely. No, nothing. Right, no, that button keeps changing colour. I don't know what it does. The door's still shut. What do I do? This computer again? No? It's gotta be this thing. This computer. No. This button, apparently. No. No. Nothing. This button? Oh, that made a noise, but I can't see the door. Alright, let's go back round. No. Nothing. Nothing at all. This thing on the wall, it changes colour. It's the only thing that does anything. Let's shoot it. No. No. What do I do? What is going on? I can't see the door. Can't do anything there. Can't do anything there. That computer does nothing. The button doesn't do anything. It just makes a noise. Can't use the door. Can't shoot the door. Can't go back in there. That does nothing. Just changes colour. Do something. Is there a secret passage? No. This button again. It does nothing. No. Why? Why does nothing work? Open. Oh, you have got to be kidding me. I couldn't select that before. Why can I suddenly select it now? That was a pain in the arse, but it also kind of highlights what a lot of the more cerebral sections of Crusader boils down to. It's the age-old problem of doors and keys, but in Crusader, certainly near the start of the game, the doors and the keys are almost inevitably about 3 feet away from each other, to the point where it's not really a puzzle, it's just something that happens without you even thinking about it. It's not just keys, sometimes it's a computer you need to read. The game teaches you this all the way through level 1, and at the start of level 2, which I've just painstakingly shown you, it starts to absolutely piss its joy juice right in your face. Because every computer you come across in level 2 has this unskippable loading sequence that you just have to wait through. But you can't help yourself. You've been taught that computers hold the key to moving forward, so you keep doing it, and you keep getting stuck in these goddamn sequences. Look, I know it sounds as though I'm being super harsh on Crusader, but I've spent a lot of time within its creaky corridors, and there are a lot of things that I haven't mentioned that wind me up. The fact that your character just seems to randomly change positions if you bump into a wall, for instance, that's annoying, but I'm not even going to bring that up because I'm better than that. I want to talk about what I like for a bit, because Crusader isn't a terrible game, not by a long shot. It's just one that has most definitely had its wings clipped by the passage of time. I think the best way to frame what I like about it, though, is to look at what people liked about the game back when it was first released. Because Crusader was by no means a weakly received game. It had glowing reviews, it sold a decent amount of copies, and it has a loving fanbase who I'm sure are hating every second of this review right now. So let's look back at those early reviews and see what they had to say. Game Informer gave the game a 7.75, which seems needlessly convoluted, and their review is basically 3 sentences, but they noted that the graphics are less than mind-boggling, the controls are obnoxious, and the game does have a few saving graces. Oh, hold on, I'm supposed to be looking for the good bits, right? Well, they do go on to say that the game does a good job of creating a gritty atmosphere of grim deaths and vicious weapons. And then that's basically the review over. I wonder how much they got paid for that. That being said, they're right about the atmosphere. While the graphics might not be up to much now, there's a definite style to them that I can't help but love. It reminds me of games like XCOM Apocalypse, where 3D games were definitely on the rise, but due to the lack of detail afforded by those polygonal efforts, they instead opted for an, at the time, high-resolution 2D look. And it works. It doesn't necessarily work for this game, but in terms of setting the scene and painting a world of dilapidated warehouses and men with guns, it certainly gets the point across. And while you can never lose the main character in amongst all the detail thanks to his bright red Star Wars costume, you can lose track of everything else. The camera is static for the most part, and it doesn't move until you either reach the edge of the screen or you press the camera button on the keyboard, which I'm not going to mention for fear of forgetting something else important. All this does is center the view on Bobby Fett. However, it doesn't let you control your viewpoint, and so you're going to be shot from off-screen, or miss a vital piece of equipment that's obscured by the landscape or detritus. There's no option to rotate the camera here. What you see is what you get, and what you see isn't always what you actually want to see. Wait, I'm being negative again. Let's go back to another old review. Here we are, GameSpot. Now, GameSpot gave the game an 8.4, which in GameSpot terms means great, although looking at the summary it lists the good as non-applicable, which that's not a great sign, but at least the review here is more than a few words written on a bit of cardboard. It's a rare treat when a game is so viscerally exciting that its shortcomings can be overlooked, states one Ron Dulin, who, even in the very first sentence, can't help but bring up the fact that there are definite issues at play here. Forget the cheesy full-motion video scenes and obligatory bad acting, he continues, not making this look any better. Forget the sometimes frustrating controls which can send your character jumping across the screen without warning, he piles on. In Crusader, only one thing is important. Things blow up real good. Alright then, that's the entirety of the first paragraph, and there are only 4 paragraphs in this review. And within that paragraph, he lists multiple issues with the game, and the only positive is that things blow up. There's definitely a theme here. He's right though, things do blow up good, and often without you really knowing how or why or when. That in part is due to the aiming, which, as we've already discussed, can often be hard to actually nail down due to your lead man's inability to just point in a particular direction. He needs to spin his way there, and even when you have the targeting reticule in place, even when the game is telling you, yep, that's the right direction, that is, you often aren't actually hitting the thing in question. Sometimes you're shooting a wall, or sometimes your guy is just wildly inaccurate. It appears that within Crusader's core mechanics there's a little bit of dice rolling going on in terms of whether or not your bullets are actually going to hit their target, which is weird, right? This isn't an RPG, although it was built within an RPG engine, and while it also looks like an RPG and it smells like an RPG, it's trying its darndest to be an action game. So why give the player such spongy feedback? I've moved into the negative again, I apologise. Let's look back at the GameSpot review and see what else was said. Well, the second paragraph is just about the story, the third paragraph is just about blowing stuff up again, and the fourth paragraph says, "Don't be surprised to find that Crusader is far from perfect. The quirky controls and somewhat disappointing plot sequences can be distracting, and the missions are something less than a mental workout." And yet the game still manages to come out of all of this with an 8.4 out of 10. Why? Well, I think part of that is to do with the landscape of DOS gaming at the time. This was a year of first-person shooters and space sims, point-and-click adventure games and strategy behemoths. But there was nothing quite like Crusader. Nothing quite as raw or pointed or built so strangely or, for the most part, competent at doing what it did in such a weird way. Because despite all of my criticisms, for the time, Crusader really isn't a bad little title at all. Even playing it now for the first time, I still had fun for the most part, and while it didn't keep me consistently engaged, the fact it tries to do what it does is mostly commendable. There are some interesting missions locked within its time frame. The action is often exciting when you can face in the right direction. The acting is, for the most part, okay.
You're not going to shoot me? You must be with Central then. So if you're here to rescue me, let's get the hell out of here.
Apart from when it's not.
Insertion coordinates verified, Captain. We'll be dropping in right in the middle of a maximum security zone. Presence of enemy troops detected. Scanners indicate active security grids internally, but there's no way for me to access them from my position. It's the best I can do for you, sir. Good luck.
But let's be honest, the cheesiness is definitely a heartwarmer here.
Oh, I see it now. You're part of the resistance, aren't you? Ooh. Well, if you've come for the prisoners, take them. You see, they'll be of no use to anyone now. Take them back to your pitiful comrades as a promise of the future from Dr. Gregor Hoffman.
I may have had a laundry list of complaints that over time started to whittle away at the enjoyment I had with the game, but it doesn't mean I hated it. It just wasn't a game in which I could personally forgive its foibles, and it leaves me in a strange place in terms of whether or not the game can be recommended, because it falls into a number of categories. I'll split these out into 4 different types of people. Person number 1. This person had the game when it first released and loved it. Your opinion on the matter is likely not going to have changed over the course of time because your nostalgia will carry you through any of the issues that the game generates. You'll remember having fun blowing up everything with your chaotic twirling, and the graphics will give you that warm, fuzzy memory blanket. Person number 2, you like games that just do something different, something that you're not likely to find anywhere else. Even if those games aren't completely perfect at what they do, you're fine with that. You'll most likely enjoy this game. Person number 3, the impatient. If you're like me and the niggles will grind you down by mission 3 or 4, then there's a 50-50 chance that you're going to bounce off Crusader. Its flaws are wide open for all to see, but it's also a product of its time, and whether or not you can accept those flaws is really going to be dependent on just how much you like the core gameplay loop, which you'll have experienced within a level or two. If you're this person, I will say the game is worth checking out, but maybe don't expect to stick with it to completion. Person number 4, you're completely unforgiving and you don't believe nostalgia has any place in a review. Well, you're probably in the wrong place for a start, but in terms of this game, you're going to hate it. From the controls to the graphics, you'll likely declare this game an abject failure and you'll wonder why anyone could have ever thought it was a good idea. Personally, I'm somewhere between person 2 and person 3. I love that this game tried to do something different, and while it didn't necessarily succeed at making its core design something I still find compelling now, I can certainly see why people fell in love with the game at the time. That being said, the person 3 in me is constantly barking at the shadows that lie in this game's design flaws. There are so many issues that pile up and drag me down that I just can't get past them when it comes to truly enjoying myself. It's a simple game in a complicated package, and your enjoyment with it is going to be directly affected by the person you are. Looking back at the reviews of the day, the game was lauded for its explosive action and, for the most part, not a lot more. And that simplicity often doesn't do enough to paper over the cracks that have now grown into fissures over time. But you never know, you being a different person to me might enjoy yourself a lot more because regardless of the fact that I've whinged on like a big fat miserable baby for hours and hours, Crusader, as previously stated, is not an awful game. It's just an okay game with a whole heap of loose joints. So go and play it, I don't care, do what you want. Now, if that little dickhead would have let me play the game back in 1995, I would have known all of this and saved myself a lot of trouble and hard work. Yeah, that's right, fuck you, Chris.